guys, welcome back to my channel. This time we are going to talk about the bottom 5 constructs in 9th Age. So what would fall in this category is anything that has type construct, and that is not specifically a character mount, so not like the Vermin Swarm, Plague Pendulum, or whatever the name now is. But just constructs that you usually get in your special categories of the armies or in some other categories maybe. Yeah, constructs, that's going to be this video. So in the number 5 spot we will have, according to me, the Vermin Swarm DOOMSPARK device. So this is one of the new versions of the Doom Wheel, the Dreadmill, that Vermin Swarm used to play a lot. The Dreadmill used to be a 430 point piece that could quite reliably remove multiple wound models from the table at an 18-inch range, I believe. I have heard people complain about Dreadmills not removing dragons in like a turn and stuff. But then again, I don't think that was specifically the purpose of the unit. Yeah, so the DOOMSPARK device, it's not that cheap at 200 points. It is quite cheap, but not that cheap. It's rather unreliable, and I think the biggest issue of it is that it really wants to go for it one turn and deal some damage. And then if you're quite unreliable, then that doesn't really work that well. Because you have a Darkstone generator, this is a shooting weapon with a range of 12 inches. We have D6 plus 1 shots at strength D6 plus 1 and AP 3. It used to be shots D6 and strength D6. It got a minor buff with the plus 1. But this plus 1 basically makes quite a lot of difference still. Especially on the strength, I think, because the amount of shots doesn't really matter whether you get 2 or 3 shots, even though that is quite a big factor at that point. But whether you're going to be strength 3 most of the, well, half of the time, strength 3 or lower, or strength 4 or lower at half of the time, that is quite a big factor. Because then even with a rather bad roll, then you will still wound on 5s instead of 6s in a lot of cases. Yeah, and in combat, it has the same grind attacks. It has swift strides, with an advance of 6 inches. So it's not that likely to charge. I think it's more likely to march and then use its shooting attack, because then you have an effective range of 22 inches. Whilst if you want to charge, probably if you want to risk it with swift stride, you want to be within like 9 or even 8 on a roll, so 14 to 15 inches. And then your threat range is a bit lower. I don't know how it works on the table. I haven't seen it on the table, but to me on paper it looks like a potential, quite a good number 5 pick here. You do have a trial and terror mode, then you target all units within 6 inches, including units not inside the front arc line of sight and units engaged in combat, except the shooting unit itself. And then yeah, you just hit everything basically. You can choose to do this, of course, as the player, and that is what makes that a bit more strong. I think against elite armies that are lightly armored, like elves, this could still be quite an okay piece. But then if it's really a priority for your opponent, then the 4 hit points at resilience 5 are not going to be that sturdy anymore. It could be a nice flank protector maybe. Against fast cavalry, it's going to do quite well, a bit like banshees maybe. Yeah, that could still be a role that it could fill, just a rather mobile flank protector. But then once your opponent puts a decent unit on the flank, then it's kind of game over for the DOOMSPARK device. With that, let's go into the number 4 pick. For me, this is going to be the HIGHBORN ELVES Sky Sloop. I think it supports a playstyle that I usually just don't play myself, because if I look at this profile, it's not impressive in damage output. The thing that it brings is that it has fly 9 inches and it has D6 strength 5 impact hits, with 2 crew at strength 4 on the charge and 2 hark attacks at strength 4. So it's mostly about the impact hits here. However, it's quite dicey with D6 impact hits and not D6 plus 1 that we saw before. And the Sky Reaper, it's a range 24 range weapon with 4 shots, strength 5, AP3, quick to fire. So you'll likely be hitting at long range because otherwise, well, you can move away and then still shoot at long range. If you end your turn in short range, then either you're playing quite aggressively or you did something terribly wrong. So probably you're going to get 2 hits at strength 5 each turn. Is that really worth it? I guess against single models it might be. Against monsters, not even that much. Yeah, just if you count it out, like the targets that you want to shoot with this, if you're shooting at a monster and you get 2 hits per turn against a resilience 5 monster, you're doing 1 wound per turn. So it's going to take you the entire game to remove a 6 hit point monster. And that is fine because, well, you're only 235 points. If you're gonna shoot cowboys instead with it, then if they're on horse on their own, then, well, they should be in a unit. If they're on like a Pegasus or something, you're quite likely to wound them. However, they're gonna likely have a 1-up armor save. So with 1 AP3, you're gonna end up at a 4-up armor save left. So you still do less than a wound per turn. And I don't really think that's worth it for the Sky Sloop. It is probably quite a nice piece to have in your line if you have a gun line and you want to use something to countercharge. So in addition to your Dragon Princes or your Knights of Rima, your Knights of Rima and your Tyrannoc Chariots, the Reaver Chariot. Wow, with Ivon Elves, I'm really good at the old names apparently. I think it can be a nice addition to the highly or the units within HIGHBORN Elves that have a high advance rate for the counter charges to support a gunline type build, but I'm personally not that much of a fan of gunlines. So yeah, if you like it, then please keep on taking it. I don't mind you taking it. That's basically all. Then we'll go to the number 3. This is going to be for me the Beast Herds Raiding Chariot. The main problem of the Beast Herd Raiding Chariots is for me the footprint of the unit combined with the damage output of the model. Because you're talking about a chariot with advance 7, which is quite low. You can boost it up with, I believe, you have witchcraft magic in Beast Herds, or at least access to, I think. And you also have the item that gives you +1 advance, and you have, what else do you have? I thought you had something else, but I can't remember now. So yeah, you get to an advance of 8 and maybe 10 if you really invest into the unit. You have the totem, obviously. The totem of extra speed. I believe it gives you like 1 or 2 extra inches or D3 inches on your charges. So in the end, you can get to quite decent advance rates. However, if you really want to buff the unit up, that is. And you're talking about a unit that consists out of a maximum of 3 raiding chariots. What do these chariots bring? Well, they give d6 impact hits per chariot. So with the d6 instead of the d6 +1, it's actually quite a big difference because with the d6, if you roll a 1 or a 2, then you're really not doing any damage. And that's only really with the 2 roll on the d6 +1, or with the 1 roll on the d6 +1 impact hits that you don't really do any damage. Because if you roll a 2, you still get 3 impact hits, which is kind of decent. It's not optimal, but it at least in a lot of scenarios will still pull you through. Then in addition, you have 2 crew on there. You have a Longhorn and a Wildhorn. One of them strikes at strength 6, which is quite decent. The other strikes at strength 4, which is kind of decent. At least he has offensive 4. And you have 2 Warhogs with offensive 3 and strength 4. So this is definitely not a very offense focused damage output profile. So then you would hope for a very defensive profile with something like Resilience 5 and Armor 3 or something. However, you do get defensive 4, but you have Resilience 4 only, and you have Armor 2 with light armor, so you do get a 4-up armor save in the end. However, the Resilience 4, I feel, is really a big step down from Resilience 5. It's also what I saw quite recently with the with the Dread Elf Raptor Chariots that have gone from Resilience 5 to Resilience 4. Suddenly Strength 3 shooting and then other stuff just wound you twice as likely as with Resilience 5. So Resilience 5 is really a big step up in terms of resilience. Yeah, that's going to be the number 3. Then for the number 2, it's going to be the Dread Elves Hunting Chariot, or at least the old version. I haven't played against the new version, to be honest. There is a new version for those who are not informed. So the old version that I'm talking about is the one with 18-inch range with one shot with strength 6, AP3 and multiple wounds 2. That hit on a 3+ with quick to fire and no accurate. So in the end that would often mean that you would hit on a 4+ at long range. You would expose your chariot because you're at 18-inch range. You have 50% chance of hitting. You have like 80% chance of wounding if your target is resilience 4. If it's resilience 5, then these percentages go down. You have AP3, so you don't go through all armor quite likely, and you have multiple wounds 2, so you don't have a spike potential for a D3. So you can't really go for it and risk it and then go for the lucky scenario, because you always will do 2 wounds. That is basically what crippled the design, because the potential of the hunting chariot was quite bad in that regard. Like if you have a hero with like 3 wounds left and you're on a flank, then you would be guaranteed to be able to approach the hunting chariot, charge it, and then bring it down. There was a time where you could compare it to the Vermin Swarm Dreadmill, and then you would see that these points were not really properly put. Yeah, so the new version is in my opinion better. In terms of damage output, it's worse. However, in terms of overall game effects, it's more of a support tool, and it's actually quite a bit better. You have 4 shots, you have strength 4, you have AP2, so that is, I would say, better actually, better than 1 shot at strength 6 that hits on a 4+, because now you're quite guaranteed to hit your targets, and with strength 4 AP2, I mean it's quite nice to just pluck off some wounds here and there. It's really a support piece now rather than a hit or miss anti-monster tool, I guess. Yeah, so it has 4 shots, strength 4, AP2, and any unit that suffers 1 more hit gets -1 agility and loses Swift Stride. And losing Swift Stride, I think, is a really big thing here, because that can enable you to get in the charges that you want to, and it can also fix situations where you try to charge a unit, you missed your roll, you went forward like 3 inches or so, and then you're now open for a counter charge of your opponent. Suddenly, if you take away the Swift Stride of your opponent, you're not that open to the counter charge anymore. It's gonna be not that popular of a choice, I think, because usually people tend to take stuff that supports their army just to enable it to go right, rather than to fix situations that didn't go right in the first place. But then again, it's also nice in a situation where you really want to pull off the advantage in terms of charges and just move up first these guys, make the enemy lose Swift Stride. For example, against Kingdom of Aquitaine, this is going to be really crippling, because suddenly you go to an 8 with 2 dice without Swift Stride instead of 8+ Swift Stride charge. Then for my number 1 pick, this is gonna be the Demon Legion's TITANSLAYER Chariot. I think it's on paper it looks amazing, and then in practice I played it a couple of times with cultists, so that's a bit of cheating there, but it doesn't work, or at least in my opinion it doesn't really work. It's a choice that probably if you want to take it, you have to take 2 of them, because otherwise it restricts you in deployment, because it's not that mobile. With a march of 7 inches, it's definitely not that mobile, and if you deploy it somewhere between units, it's not really going to get away from the gap between these units, so you severely limit its mobility even further. It's a tool that is a not very mobile counter to highly mobile pieces because it specifically targets towering presence pieces with maximum of 4 impact hits at strength 7 with AP2 only. So AP2 is kind of funny there because then against single models on towering presence like manticores and stuff, you don't really do a lot anymore. It's really only against dragons and like. And then it's quite a decent counter because if you get like the average amount of impact hits, say 3, you're gonna wound 2 of them. You have AP2, so you're gonna likely make the enemy not pass his armor saves. If he doesn't, that's 4 wounds automatically. So that goes quite quickly. And for a model that only costs 205 points, that is not that bad. However, a dragon is just gonna ignore you, basically. So you do have Devastating Charge +2 advance against stuff that is, for example, a dragon. But if it's the only thing in your army that your opponent has to account for, then, I mean, you're playing demons, so you can also tackle this stuff with magic. You have a hereditary that's just a bolt thrower, so worst case, you just take your hereditary spell, even though I don't see Demon Legion players taking the spell that often. Usually they take spells that support their combat pieces, which makes sense. But just in case you face off a dragon, you can just take double Spear of Affinity and solve your problems that way. In contests, however, it's quite a nice piece because you can summon it wherever you want, basically. So you can just summon it next to your target, and then your target does have a problem. Yeah, so that's going to be it for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you the next time.